Awesome. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Cool. So, see what we've got on this week. So I am out tomorrow and Monday. If you, I'd recommend go ahead delivery weekly on Monday. If you have topics, you should all be able to host the meeting and things like that. So I'll double check those settings before I head off today. But if you have things you want to cover, then go ahead and run that one. Cool. And I was going to have a discussion, but actually the issue is going on quite nicely. So I've just put a little nudge that please go ahead and add your thoughts onto the OKR issue. Thanks for the suggestions and things so far, particularly Yurik. Thanks for multiple suggestions. I think we can still just bounce around ideas this week. So go ahead and do that. And then next week we'll actually tie them down to some things that we want to focus on in Q4. I think what I've seen so far on this one is it's less about what to do, and it'll be more about what order makes sense to do things. So it might be that we line up some stuff and be like, this is Q4, and then this stuff comes after in Q1 or something along those lines. Cool. So discussion. So as part of we building in familiarity with our boards, let's take a look. So let's start with what we've got on the build board right now. So I think pretty much everything, hopefully, that we have in progress is in progress. What I'm going to start doing from next week is actually putting together a little summary, and we can start looking at all the stuff we've completed in X period. So we actually get a little bit more of a sense. So I think we always will have a lot of stuff going on in delivery. I think it's easy to kind of just overlook the things we've already achieved. So I'll try and wrap up some stuff next week on a report there. So in progress, we've got all the stuff, which is looking good.
Amy, you still have the Kubernetes label applied.
Yes, thank you. Yes, great, thanks. Even more stuff on the board. So lots going on. We've got pretty ready column as well, which is good. So if you need to pick stuff up, please grab from the ready column. These are the things, I think pretty much everything in here will move us closer towards our Q3 OKRs. So all of that stuff is good value. We've got the priorities, so yeah, you can use that as well to help you pick on stuff. Is there anything else that people feel we should bring into the build board in the next X period? Like for now, like I'm not going to set a sprint period of time because we don't know how long the stuff will take us. But is the stuff that people actually want to have available as a ready? We could pick it up as the next task if we need to.
I have a side question, which is partially related. I was sure there was an option to sort the columns by the content of the columns by label, so that you could say this is the priority label, and things should be sorted by that.
I haven't seen one, and it's a real missing feature. I feel like we should build it.
I was so sure it was there, but actually I'm not finding it as well.
I'm not finding it. No, I did think that as well. Like at the moment, I'm using the highly manual thing, which also fits in with us not having to do many things in this column, so that we can actually sort it. Because yeah, you're right. Like these should definitely be sorted by priority, so that it's much easier.
Yeah, but maybe you're right. There was a feature about allowing manual sorting, so maybe this is the reason why you cannot have it sorted by a label, because you are supposed to move them.
Yeah, it would be a nice feature to have. Cool.
If you open the settings for a column, you can't get rid of the settings after you open it. It's a little weird. Oh, you have an X. I don't have that. What?
It's like admin, right? Superpowers.
Oh.
I can close it as well. Like, look.
Scarbeck, I think it's because you have the performance bar up and it hides the X. It doesn't account for that.
This is going to be a lot of fun using these boards, I can see. Awesome. Okay, well, if you come across things, particularly if you're working on an epic and you can see stuff coming up, then go ahead and drop that stuff in. We also have our planning board. So this is the stuff which is, we're not necessarily going to start building on this right away, but these are things where we have things that we need to kind of come to some sort of idea of how we would solve the problem before we build it. One thing, so last week we took out the additional column, which was the proposal column. I have to say I've struggled a little bit, so I'd love to hear people's thoughts on this. What I wanted to be able to do is say, this Sentry one, for example, we've got some really good discussion on. Do people feel like that is, like, are your notifications enough for you to actually be able to see that? Or is it actually useful to have some different thing between this one needs an idea and this one has an idea and it needs to be reviewed, or not reviewed, but like you might be interested in seeing other ideas on it?
So I think that, at least for me, so the notification is useful for, let's say, as a conversation starter, but then maybe when people start commenting, you don't always get notified again, so you don't get a to-dos, and maybe if something is still not really actionable but still in the discussion phase, it's really, maybe it's hard to go back to it, because once you have commented the first time, the to-dos disappear for you, and then it's either you took a bookmark or it's gone.
So I was thinking it might look useful if we did, proposal may not be the right label, but it exists. So if, for example, this board looked like this, I pulled those two just because I know they are, in my mind, I think they are very close to us actually being able to just say, great, that's the answer, let's move them on. When you landed on that board, does that feel like it would be more clear between here's stuff I need to start having ideas about, and here's stuff I could just have a quick scan of and maybe thumb up or comment if needed? So
in this configuration here, what will be the difference between proposal and ready?
Ready is, we're thumbs up. We're good. Like whenever we choose to prioritize building it, we can start building it.
Okay, and then the question is, and so the difference between triage and proposal?
So I think it is, proposal is, there's a proposed solution on this that people might want to input into. Triage is, we need to come up with an idea.
So we can say triage is, at least we have the problem description, and then we have in proposal, we have a solution that is proposed, and in ready, we agreed that this is the solution. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Let's see how we go with that for the next iteration. Like, again, I'm very happy to modify if needed. But certainly for me, I kind of wanted to be able to say to people like, hey, let's have a look at the Sentry one. Like, I want us to make a call on that. And so it feels different to me to some of the other triage ones. Cool. Okay. If there's anything else, we've got quite a lot of stuff on this board. One thing we haven't covered, which I think we should have a think about, is there's two ways we can do this really, is how we actually deal with the triage. So we could either have it where everybody just spends a bit of time each week and we gradually move things over. That could work. We've got plenty of stuff that is ready to be built, so we're not like blocked waiting for this stuff. Or the way that some of the other teams do it is they have a rota, and there's somebody who is like the primary person responsible for moving these things over, and everybody else contributes. So I don't know if anyone has any preferences or want to try one before the other, or.
I lean less towards the latter option because there's going to be a lot of issues in here that I won't know how to appropriately provide feedback for. And I would imagine the same would happen for some of the Kubernetes work and some other persons as well.
I would suggest that whoever creates the issue is sort of in charge of triaging their own issues, because in theory they know the most about whatever they are reporting. Whether that will work, I'm not sure. I think the issue, if you have somebody dedicated on a rotation, they might not be able to triage everything properly, and it might not be the case in our team, but it can lead to people not bothering to triage work because whoever is on the rotor will do that. I don't think it will be the case for our team, but yeah, I think it's best if you sort of tries it your own work, and I guess maybe periodically we look at it together.
Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. So let's see how we go. Say we're not blocked at all right now. The ones I particularly want people to have a look at are the ones that are going to be sort of the broad reaching across the team. So say, for example, like Sentry, we all use Sentry. We all have to go through the release process. So those are the ones which in particular, I think we should have more than just one or two people's views on. Yeah, let's see how we go on this one. And so if you want to bring in new stuff for planning, please go ahead and do stuff. And similarly, if you want to drop anything off these boards, just go ahead and do that as well. That's totally fine. Cool.
For those of us who occasionally bypass the board, are we okay with those 4 rules? Are you okay with those, Amy?
With the sorry, sorry, just repeat the question.
It's the item some 4 rules for the bot to help with, like, moving the labels around for those of us who sometimes bypass the board and just like snag issues. Are we okay with those 4 rules? Does that make sense to you?
I think we don't need to do anything with the priority labels, right? Like we've got change priority labels.
Yeah, I just want to remove, if we're going to settle on the delivery priority labels, then maybe we'll just replace the existing priority label with the delivery one if it's set.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Just so that we don't have 2, because sometimes we end up with 2 priority labels and it gets confusing. So I wanted just to standardize on the delivery ones if we're going to use those.
Cool. Yeah, that works for me. I think that looks like a good first iteration.
Okay.
Great.
Cool.
Nice. One other thing as well on labeling. One thing I don't know if other people do. I think I've only seen Scarbeck is on issues and particularly on epics, having a little example or not a little like summary at the bottom of the labels we've used. That is super, really helpful. So I think we should also like consider standardizing that on our epics as well. I don't know if you've got an example to hand, Scarbeck, but.
Yeah, I use the same after seeing this in Scarbeck. Is really a great idea.
Yeah, it's really good.
Realistically, we should be able to create a board per an epic, but that doesn't seem to be possible. I'd rather see that as a feature in GitLab versus what I currently do, because I don't like what I currently do.
Yeah, yeah, we started out when we created an epic, we would have a standard list of labels we would apply to each issue, but in practice, in theory, it was a nice idea, but in practice, it just doesn't. It doesn't work. There's too many.
Administrative burden.
Yeah, and it really comes down to like, are you looking at the board every day, or are you looking at the epic every day? And I think it's hard to look at both.
Yeah, I think that's possibly true as well. Cool. But yeah, I agree with those rules. They look good. Nice. And as I say, we're still iterating on this stuff. I haven't written up that workflow stuff into the handbook yet, but I will do. I'll try and do next week, I think, maybe towards the end of next week, so we can still change it, but just so it settles in a little bit. So feel free to keep suggesting ways we can change this stuff. Awesome. So next point is MTBF. So Rachel and I have been working on this. It's a proposal at the moment, but I want to give you a heads up. So I have been thinking about this. We're thinking about this, I guess, slightly different ways. So I'm thinking about it as it will be a useful, in the future, it'll be a useful counterpart to MTTP. We will get to a stage, I'm sure, where we're going too fast on MTTP and causing like too many problems. I think MTBF will be our measure of that for us. So the way I'm seeing it from a delivery point of view is we will keep focusing on reducing MTTP whilst we can keep MTBF stable. And from Rachel's side on scalability, she's looking at it as a way to measure, are we improving things so that we don't keep interrupting people on things? So those are the issues and MRs and things that we're working on at the moment. I think in terms of what I'm expecting on our day-to-day work, it won't change things too much for us. It might be useful as a feed into OKRs that we'll sort of adjust, but scalability will probably switch focus a little bit more frequently on these things. Jav, good point. Yes, try to verbalize.
Yeah, just thinking like, how can we tell if we're going too fast? And maybe one way is just to see how often we're rollbacking or issuing rollbacks, if that's something that we start doing.
Mm-hmm.
But even if this is the case, this is completely outside of our control. So MTTBF depends on mostly on development. So if they ship P1 issues, it's not on us. So how even deploying more frequently should not. So decreasing MTTP should not be tied to
MTBF.
the other one.
I was only thinking, I was thinking testing might have an impact, right? That's the only thing I was thinking of.
Yeah,
you're right. And this is the thing. I don't think it won't be so much like we change our work so much, but I think it will be an interesting one of, do we need to spend more time, for example, working with development so they understand the implications of changes of these types, or do we need to spend more time working with quality to change the way QA things work? Like, I think having just a focus of fast, there's a risk that we could be like, great, we could just cut 10 checks out of the pipeline and therefore we won't, we can go faster, but we could be having some impact. So rollbacks, I think, will be an interesting one, because I think at some point we'll need to be able to separate out an issue that's detected on staging versus one that's detected in production. And rollbacks would be a really good way for us to actually limit the impact on production. But we're not quite there yet, like in terms of like needing to measure that stuff. So I think what we'll do is reasonably manual. We'll have a chart that we'll track through Periscope, and we can have that alongside MTTP. In terms of actually drilling into the data and making a decision of like, do we need to be doing something differently? We'll do that on a bit more of a human thing. We'll have a spreadsheet, we can take a look through the issues and actually use it as are we seeing patterns? Is this something we want to be doing differently to actually change this number or not? And I think scalability will be doing an awful lot of the, at least initially, a lot of the work to improve like corrective actions and things like that to minimize incidents.
So still talking about mean time to something, if we have to pick another one that is important to us, I would suggest that we go for mean time to recovery, because there we may have control over it. So it's all about making sure that the rollback strategies really works and it's performing. And that could be a second, what is this? There's a KPI or whatever, performance indicator to keep track of.
It's a really great point. MTTR really also does tie into this stuff. So I think we'll certainly take a look at that in the future as well. Cool. So it's not really finalized yet. So, but just for visibility, that stuff hopefully is coming in as well. Cool. So, yeah. So yesterday in the AMA, Marion made a great sort of bigger blue sky thinking that I was going for, but it was like, if QA tests ran in 5 minutes, it's a really great way to, I guess, help us think about where do we want to get to in the future. So yeah, I just wanted to open it up and actually see other ways, like what other ideas that would radically improve things. Scarback, go for it.
Well, firstly, I think if QA tests ran as quickly as they needed to accomplish everything they test in 5 minutes, we would probably bring down our environments because we'd hammer that environment. But yeah, if builds happened in less than an hour, that would certainly help us out a little bit.
What would be the main thing we'd have to change to have that?
I have no idea. Collaboration.
Yeah, we might want to start
the
looking into the. We might want to start looking into the runners that build the packages and see if they're like, are they bottlenecked on the CPU, or is it just I/O, or what? Maybe we can increase those.
We also had a couple of discussion when we were talking about the next gen auto deploy, and the two main direction that we identified were, one is eventually do parallel building, so that we can start deploying while tests are still running, and we have some kind of a breakpoint at the end of staging, so that we will never promote past staging unless all the other tests are okay. The other one was about the tagging from master. But yeah, I agree also with Roberts that the pipeline for building our packages was designed a long time ago with a different expectation and different requirements. And even just thinking that we have to rebuild the whole world just for creating an omnibus package, when maybe we just want to upgrade the assets. And this is something that you can do patching an existing packages, or maybe you want to ship just a new Gitly binary and you have to repackage everything. So there are a lot of room for improvement there, but it's a very big effort.
Okay, awesome. Great. I think all of the stuff ties in nicely. I think we've talked a little bit, I think I've talked to each of you a little bit about, we have a long roadmap ahead of us. And it's really great to hear this stuff, because like this stuff is big and we don't have an obvious answer to it. So yeah, that's really exciting. I think we'll see lots of exciting things coming in and completing the migration. Yeah.
Speaking of the parallelization for the deployer, we could certainly start the warm up for the next phase while the QA for the previous phase is running, right? We could at least do that.
I think the idea there is that QA is a gate. So you're thinking that you could start the next phase and then cancel it if QA fails?
Basically just move the gate one step past the warm up, right? So before we actually deploy anything, it's still waiting for the QA, but meanwhile it's whatever, it's fetching the package and installing it. But what's the warm up actually do? I'm not sure anymore.
The warm up is actually
just downloading. Download the artifacts, the packages. So you can move it in the QA stage.
A couple minutes at best.
Yeah, it's not a lot. I mean, it would probably save us like maybe 10 minutes total across the whole pipeline, maybe. So that, yeah, that's an idea I think is worth pursuing. One thing that would help, I put it down here, is like just removing the omnibus after we're in Kubernetes altogether. If we're not waiting for the omnibus package, that will save some time. But then we have to figure out whether we really want to do that for auto deploys, because I think there could be value in keeping a couple of virtual machines around with the omnibus package running
we still have certain things that we use the deployer node for. So like database migrations and stuff, we'd have to sort that first.
That's true. Yeah, we would have to, but of course we could do migrations using a CNG image.
Awesome. It's really interesting stuff. And as I say, I'm really excited. Once we do have Kubernetes, we have kind of a whole load of other tools to play with, right? Like we could deploy to a cluster and hold that one and switch traffic and do some stuff there as well. Awesome. So this was really just, I was curious on just random ideas that we had, so we can start thinking kind of much longer. I think the next 6 months are pretty easy to predict with the work that we already have kind of in progress. But beyond that, 6 months, the next couple of years, I think it'll be really interesting to see where we can take this stuff. Cool. Geoff.
Yeah, I'm just curious what the next steps, or what do we think the next steps are for Alessio's proposal to start deploying off the master branch? Do we think this is something we may, Alessio and I were talking about it earlier, and we're thinking like, maybe we could just keep everything the same, except we tag from the master branch and create an auto deploy branch, but never use it, and try that for a month. See if that causes problems. If not, like maybe we go forward with just using the master branch.
Yeah, I'd love to understand. So this one's kind of still on planning. I think it would be good to hear. It'd be useful, I think, for us to have a think about like what might we need to update if we didn't have a branch. I'm assuming there's some things, maybe particularly around like the kind of monthly releases or maybe security releases, possibly.
Well, in that case, the branch will still be created after the fact. So, because otherwise all the existing code needs to be rewritten. So the main difference was that now we create the branch and then on a regular basis we tag on the branch. In that case, when we say create the branch, instead we are tagging master and creating a branch out of it. And you don't tag, so you remove the scheduled pipeline that just do the tagging, so that you can test this. So the conversation we had, Jarvan and I had about this is more about the safety of it. So what I described in the issue is based on this idea that building a package is a commitment to deploying it. So you stick with it, right? So until you need a good reason for tagging another thing on another place of master and starting again. So you should reach production with that thing. And if we just remove the current schedule and tweak the branch creation to also tagging, we kind of lose this idea, right? Because basically every 6 hours or whatever you tag. And yeah, I don't know. I want to make sure that if we go down this route, which can be easy, maybe you can do this easily with a feature flag, we still have the ability to cherry pick something and create a package out of something that we know works or doesn't work. Because I don't want to enter the situation where we have a P1 issues that was spotted too late, so it's already in production, say canary or production. And then we want to tag something else from master, which maybe has just a revert because we identified the problem, but we don't know what else we are shipping, right? Because maybe there's another P1 in that batch of features. So this was my only concern about it. But
yeah, I think that sounds totally sensible. Those are, yeah, I think we just need to work out those last little bits, come up with a good plan. And then truthfully, it's really just going to be a case of scheduling it in, right? Prioritizing it. I think, well, my view, but open for others, is that it doesn't go towards our OKRs, and we've got 2 weeks left of this quarter. So it doesn't feel like it should be higher priority than the things that were already on the build board. But I'm very much like keen for us to do it. So yeah, we can schedule this in. Awesome. We are at time on this meeting, but well, it reminds me think what I will do. I'll leave it for Monday because see how you'll go on that one. Like, but we should probably consider whether we want to make this meeting 45 minutes or find a way to take some of this stuff async. It feels like we regularly overrun, but open for ideas there as well. But if anyone needs to drop off, please go ahead. If not, and you want to stick about, then let me stop the recording.